What's up, everybody? Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of exciting news to go over here this week. Thankfully, most of the news this week is good news, though. So I don't think there's any reason to drink this week like there was last week, but I very much appreciate everyone that left all the comments and how much you guys really appreciated that weekly update and the little bit of a change up I did there with the drinking. It was a lot of fun to do, and I do plan to do it again in the future. If there's a week where there's a bunch of bad news that makes it appropriate, I will totally 100% do that again. But anyway, starting off with the news here for this week, the first story is kind of crazy and just an unfortunate turn of events. So the New York Auto Show has been canceled. So this was the show coming up in a couple of weeks here, where the Nissan Z was supposed to be revealed, the new Subaru WRX, and all that stuff has been canceled as far as the show goes. Now, I mean, all the car companies are used to COVID stuff by now, so I'm sure they'll just do an online reveal, and they have all their press materials and stuff already ready to go, I'm sure. So so there will not be any kind of in-person stuff. I don't know how that's going to play out with the media events, because there were going to be, actual journalists, filming stuff in person. I'm not sure if there's going to be private events still to show off those videos, but I'm not going to be going to any of that kind of stuff. So I will just be covering it here with the press materials, but I will be doing dedicated videos on the Z and the WRX whenever they do come out, and I'll give all my thoughts on those vehicles independently, and then I'll also summarize everything else that comes out at the New York Auto Show, because there will still be a bunch of other stuff, so I'll be covering that here in a couple of weeks. But yeah, just crazy the show has been canceled. But Acura, they have also some cool news mixed in with some sad news. So they teased the upcoming NSX Type S that's going to be revealed next week. I think it's going to be revealed actually in Monterey, so that's not part of the whole New York thing. But unfortunately, along with these cool teasers and the announcement of this car, it came in the news that this will be the last NSX to be produced here whenever they're going to be discontinued after the 2022 model year. So 2022 model year will be only Type S NSX. So basically, I think it's already too late to order a current NSX if you want. It's just going to be rolling into the Type S's, and that's it. So I'm sad it's going away, but at least they're going out with a bang here with this Type S version. So Acura says it's going to be faster and more powerful, along with having sharper handling and a more emotional driving experience. And one of the images even shows it making a ton of rear tire smoke, meaning it could either just be a drift machine, or it could have some type of rear-wheel drive mode for the all-wheel drive system. They did confirm it will in fact still have the super handling all-wheel drive. They also did confirm it's still going to be a twin-turbo V6, so this isn't like a street-legal version of the NSX race car, which is rear-wheel drive and doesn't have the same engine and stuff. This is going to still be basically the current NSX, just cranked up a little bit. So yeah, but they didn't say exactly what they're going to do styling wise, but we have a few little teasers that kind of show us it's going to have new bumpers. There's a new red engine cover we can see. Only 350 of these will be produced, with 300 going to the United States and 50 to the rest of the world. Seems like an odd split. I'm sure there's a lot more international fans for the NSX, honestly, probably than there are in the States here, but that's the way they're splitting it up. VIN number 1 will be auctioned off next week at the Make Monterey auction for charity. They didn't say how much the Type S is going to be, but so I guess there's probably a few in dealer inventories you can still pick up if you want to get a regular NSX. But it is really sad, because I love the NSX I had last year for a week. I mean, admittedly, it was my first supercar I had as a press loan, but still, I mean, the NSX is just such a cool car. And I even said in the video, you can go watch the video if you're curious about all my thoughts on the NSX, but it really was a vehicle that was ahead of its time. Honda and GM often are kind of ahead of their time in many ways. And if you look back at history, and Honda, I think, with the Acura NSX, it's just another example of that. Now just everyone else is slowly coming along with, McLaren has the Artura. You have Ferrari just, doing the SF90 Stradale, and now the 296. They're slowly doing this electrified thing and all that. And Acura's been doing it for the past 5 years here, and no one seemed to care. And now, just as the NSX is going away, is when all of its actual competitors are finally showing up, which just shows just how ahead of the times Acura was. The Acura NSX is the supercar of 5 years ago that is actually should have been meant for 2025, not 2015. Is the way I look at it. But anyway, that's enough about the ranting of the NSX. But so as far as, a successor or something, will there be a new version maybe? We'll have to see. So here's what Acura said. They said that They're interested in more performance vehicles in the future, but they did say Acura is a performance brand, a company of enthusiasts, and we will continue moving forward, actively investigating what the next generation of sports cars should be in an electrified era. Then another Acura spokesperson added that NSX has played a critical role in reestablishing Acura as a performance brand and the return of Type S. We've seen tremendous enthusiasm in the market, and we aren't done yet. There's more to come as Type S becomes the pinnacle expression of performance across the Acura lineup. So I guess we'll see, what they end up doing. I mean, it sounds like, they were talking about sports cars and stuff there, so we're not just talking about Type S versions of MDXs and stuff. Hopefully there's some real sports car stuff coming down the road as well. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, this kind of stuff is getting harder and harder to justify, though, so I wouldn't blame them if they just did Type S versions of everything and we never see an NSX again, but hopefully, they find some way to justify a new version sometime down the road, and I will certainly be covering all the stuff on the Type S version of the NSX next week. I'm very excited to hear all the details about it. Automotive news this week also had kind of a shocker report, which Toyota later confirmed to be true. The Avalon is going away after the 2022 model year. So the Toyota Avalon's been around since 1994, so it's kind of crazy that they're having it go by the wayside here. But even though the Avalon was always pretty similarly sized to the Camry, I think just the dwindling full-size sedan market just certainly doesn't help. I mean, now all that's left is the Nissan Maxima, the Chrysler 300, and the Dodge Charger. That's it as far as the full-size segment goes, which really is kind of a misnomer because most of those full-size sedans are about the same size as many mid-size sedans since they're all ballooning in size. But still, it's kind of crazy. I really like the Avalon. I thought it actually handled really well. It was nice and sporty for this new version. The TRD version cranked it up another notch. I reviewed one of those too. And yeah, I think really the biggest problem with the Avalon was the pricing. It was too closely priced to a Lexus ES that anyone that just wants a soft, comfy front-wheel drive cruiser would just go for an ES for like an extra $3 or $4 over the Avalon. And so I think that was really the biggest problem with the Avalon. And, anyway, it's going away for whatever reason. Toyota decided to have it go away, but it is what it is, but crazy to hear that. For some good news, though, from Toyota Group, Lexus has announced some updates here for the 2022 GX 460, thankfully. So the biggest thing is getting a much-needed update to the interior, which I did an interior review last year on it, and I mean, we weren't kind to it because it's very, very dated in a lot of ways, and so thankfully this seems to be fixing a lot of that. So it's ditching the touchscreen from 2010 and replacing it finally with a new 10.3-inch touchscreen from the RX instead. It also includes Apple CarPlay and Android Auto finally here in the 2022 model year. They're adding it in. It also does include the trackpad controller for some reason. I'm not sure why, but maybe they just feel like they have to have that controller with their infotainment system, even though the touch part works totally fine. Anyway, the rest of the center stack has also been redesigned with a new HVAC area, stereo controls, all that kind of stuff. You can also get a new Blackline edition, which has some slight changes to the design to make it a little more aggressive. And then the GX also gets the beautiful Nori Green Pearl color as an option for 2022 as well, which is a great color on the RX and also on the Lexus LC that featured it. And so great that they're adding that. And really nice improvements there for the GX. So I think the GX still has a really strong appeal to a lot of people mechanically and as far as what it is, but I think, definitely having an interior from 2010 hurt it. So now it's a lot better, and so that's a great improvement. It should make it a lot more competitive. Also, just last week, Mitsubishi teased the plug-in hybrid version of the new Outlander, and they promise it's going to have more range, more power, which could make it a pretty interesting RAV4 Prime competitor eventually. But this week, Best Car Magazine in Japan is claiming that this model will actually get a Ralliart version. So we'll see what Ralliart entails. We know Mitsubishi doesn't really care about name heritage, considering what they did to the Eclipse name. But it was confirmed by Mitsubishi that Ralliart was returning, so we know that's actually something that is happening. But it still remains to be seen, what they actually use the badge for. All that Best Car said is that it's going to have a race-inspired body kit. If this turns out to be just an appearance package with all these Ralliarts, that's going to really be a huge disappointment. Hopefully it will be a little bit more than that. But we'll just have to wait and see. Supposedly, the magazine claims it was supposed to be revealed earlier this year at the Tokyo Motor Show before that got canceled for COVID reasons. So it sounds like it could be potentially ready anytime, and they're just waiting to reveal it, I guess, for whenever. I don't know. So we could be seeing that any day now here. We'll have to see. They did start teasing the plug-in hybrid version, so hopefully we get the Ralliart version relatively soon after that or during the same time. We'll have to wait and see, but Anyway, if they could actually bump the power and make it a good RAV4 Prime competitor with 300 horsepower or more, I mean, that could be a really cool thing. I think the new Outlander looks great. It has a great interior. And so hopefully, they do something pretty impressive with it. But we'll have to wait and see. But interesting to hear that. Stellantis recently put out a product roadmap for its investors here this month, and along with it, they revealed two things that we didn't know previously about the product plans within Stellantis. So, I mean, they're usually pretty open and forthcoming. They have been in the past with these plans, and a lot of times the plans don't work out. They had a big, ambitious plan for Alfa Romeo that didn't turn out anything close to like how they planned. So we'll see if this actually comes to fruition. But first, the big revelation here is that Jeep is planning to put out their first electric vehicle in 2023, according to this roadmap. Whether that's a production version of the Magneto concept for the Wrangler that they showed off at the Easter Jeep Safari, or if it's something else, remains to be seen. This stuff also, I believe, could just apply to Europe, so this could just be some, electric version of a Jeep Compass or something like that. That's a lot less exciting. We'll have to see. But the other tidbit that was revealed here is that Dodge plans to put out their first plug-in hybrid vehicle next year. So with that, there's a few different ways that could go. So currently, the Dodge lineup only consists of the Challenger, Charger, and Durango. So there's not a lot of options there unless they introduce a new model. We did hear that, Hornet was just trademarked not too long ago, so they could be just working on something new, and it could just be a plug-in hybrid setup like, the Jeep Renegade or something like that. That then is just a Dodge version, and that gets a plug-in hybrid just because it's related and something, that's not super innovative, just something like that. Or this could be something a little bit more creative. So, some are suggesting this could be the next generation Durango that's coming, that will be getting the same plug-in hybrid thing that the Jeep Grand Cherokee 4xe gets. Which could make sense, except the Durango was just refreshed last year, and like late last year, like in the fall of last year. So, I mean, to have a brand new model just like a year or so after you just did a refresh seems a little shocking to me. I know the Durango is pretty ancient at this point as far as the bones, but if it's selling well and they just did a refresh, I don't know. So I got a little creative with my speculation here about what I think it could potentially be. So I'm thinking, maybe they want to kind of slowly introduce people to the whole electrified muscle car thing. They said there's going to be a fully electric e-muscle coming in 2024. But before then, that Wrangler 4xe powertrain could go into a bunch of stuff, especially the Charger and the Challenger are pretty massive with their engine bays, obviously fitting Hellcat motors and stuff. So fitting some type of electrified thing under the hood would be very easy to do. And I think, they could potentially do something with the Charger and upset less people than they would with the Challenger. And so, I mean, if you look at, if they wanted to replace the V6 or even like the lower RT V8 versions with the 4xe powertrain, that 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder combined with the electric motors in the Wrangler does 375 horsepower and 470 pound-feet of torque, meaning they would have enough power to outrace even an RT Charger. Wouldn't probably outrun the SRT version or, the 6.4 motor, but the 5.7, this would actually probably be quicker than the 5.7 motor. So they could do something like that, either to replace the V6 and be like, look, you're getting this huge performance upgrade. You're getting 75 more horsepower over the old V6 going for the Turbo 4 with a plug-in thing. They could do that. Or, if they want to get more ambitious, just phase out the 5.7 in the Charger, only offer the 6.4 for the people who must have a V8, but then, have this in-between thing. There's also been talks of Ford doing similar things with the Mustang, of having a hybrid version of the Mustang that had V8 levels of power. That still has been missing for several years. I think that was confirmed to be showing up sometime before 2020. That never happened. I don't know what the progress is on that whole thing. But regardless, companies are dabbling with that kind of stuff. So don't be totally shocked if we end up seeing some of a plug-in hybrid Charger or Challenger. But, the Durango is probably a safer bet. We'll have to see what ends up happening. But anyway, just very interesting to see they are planning something there, and we'll see what ends up coming out next year. We don't have much longer to wait for that, so interesting there. Subaru this past week has teased the new Wilderness Edition that they're working on. So on their revealed product roadmap, which I believe came out pre-COVID, but they were planning to do the Outback, and then the Forester was also next up. And then the next generation Crosstrek, I believe, is getting a Wilderness version as well, according to that timeline. But Forester's up next. That's what this is. It matches up with the teaser image and what a Forester looks like and stuff. So that's what this is going to be. And so, the only thing is, in the Outback, it gets all the lifted suspension and stuff, which you can expect here on the Forester. But the Outback gets the turbo motor. The Forester does not have that turbo motor in this generation. Whether or not they bring the turbo motor in for the Wilderness Edition to really sweeten the deal for the Wilderness, or if it's just, hey, you get a lifted suspension, here you go, have fun with 180 horsepower, I don't know. We'll have to see how that plays out. But, they did choose to put the Wilderness Edition on a turbo Outback, not on a non-turbo one. So there's hope that maybe we could actually see a turbo motor finally in the Forester again. That could be cool. Although it obviously wouldn't be very sporty. It would just be for the off-roading type. But anyway, we'll have to see when that actually gets revealed. I mean, they're teasing it now, so I'm guessing it's not going to be a super long wait. Honestly, sadly, because of, the news last week with the WRX, it wouldn't shock me if they were planning to reveal this alongside the new WRX in New York. Because they're both going to have tons of body cladding apparently and both be off-road ready. So, I wouldn't be surprised. Thankfully, according to that roadmap, there isn't a WRX Wilderness Edition planned. I know some of you brought that up last week. There's nothing planned unless they changed that or they kept it super under wraps or something. I don't think it should be a Wilderness Edition of the WRX, although that would kind of make, I guess, a little more sense than just doing it on the regular one, because at least you could get a normal street version of the WRX, but regardless, I'm not going to go back into the whole WRX thing. But, so we could see it as soon as 2 weeks from now or something, around when the New York Auto Show is supposed to happen. But we'll have to see. Could be a longer wait, but interesting there nonetheless. Hyundai also wants to join in on the whole off-road vibe thing, but it's a vibe and not an actual off-road thing, because thankfully, though, I do have to give Hyundai credit. They're not adding this off-road package to the Elantra N, like Subaru's trying to do. Sorry, I'm still triggered. But anyway, so what they're doing here is they're unveiling the 2022 Santa Fe XRT. So it's the new trim line for the Santa Fe, and while it may look meaner, it's just an appearance package. You can even get it on a front-wheel drive Santa Fe, so that shows you just how serious this package is. Not very serious. So basically, it just gets unique bumpers, side skirts, you get running boards, roof rails with crossbars, and wheels. But this is kind of a head scratcher because they didn't take it any further, because you have like the Sorento with their X-Line trim that Kia does, which is a platform mate to the Santa Fe. They're very similar underneath. They use the same engines, all that kind of stuff. And the X-Line version of the Sorento, you do get extra ground clearance. You also get a locking center diff. Neither of those things are present in the Santa Fe. So Hyundai got the short end of the stick as far as that deal. The Sorento is clearly the better one if you are interested in any kind of off-road rugged thing. But anyway, if you just want the appearance of off-road capability and not the actual off-road capability, it's going to be starting at $33,485 before destination for the front-wheel drive version. It's about $1,700 extra for all-wheel drive, so you're looking at about $35,000 for those. It's based on like an SEL convenience package, so it's lower, so that's why you see the cloth seats and stuff. I don't believe you can get it on fully loaded versions or anything. But yeah, interesting to see that nonetheless. But hey, at least they're keeping it on the SUVs and not on the sedans. So it's good news there. Aston Martin this week, we got a couple of high-end car stories here. They've teased a Roadster version of the Valkyrie that they're showing off at Monterey Car Week next week. And this is another one of those dream cars on my wish list now. So this is going to be a naturally aspirated V12 in that Valkyrie with a 10,500 RPM red line, and it's going to be screaming behind you with no roof in this Roadster version. I mean, the hardtop was already sweet enough, but the Roadster, sign me up. I would love to get one of those someday. Yeah, that would be amazing. So we'll keep playing the lottery and keep our fingers crossed. But otherwise, yeah, pretty awesome. I'm looking forward to covering more of that here next week. Pagani has also revealed their Monterey debut a little bit early here. It's called the Huayra BC Tempesta package. So it gets an extra 36 horsepower, 37 more pound-feet of torque for totals of 827 horsepower and 811 pound-feet of torque now. So those numbers are over the 800 mark. Pretty impressive from that twin-turbo V12. To assist in making that extra power, it gets additional intakes just behind the C-pillar there, which is pretty sweet. It also gets 2 more exhaust tips for a total of 6 exhaust tips now. There's 2 in the rear diffuser hidden there, in addition to the 4 that are probably displayed higher up there in the rear bumper. And also to help with the handling, of the extra power and stuff, there's a new fin now connecting to the rear wing and an upgraded suspension. So, should be pretty much improved all around, and not like a Huayra needed any kind of improvement, especially the BC version. But now it's turned up just a little bit more. So awesome to see that. Tesla, they might as well be revealing us at Monterey because it's all about expensive Teslas here. They're continuing to raise the price on the Model S at a record rate. So it jumped another $5,000 for a starting price this week. Now a base Model S will start at $90,000. Just last fall, they were like 80 grand or no 70 grand, and now they've jumped up 20, and now it's $90,000 starting, which is just crazy. So Elon Musk, someone called him out on Twitter, and he responded that the main reason is there's major supply chain pressure, price pressure industry wide. So he's basically saying, oh, well, everything's just expensive all across the industry. And it's like, yeah, except no one else is raising their prices this fast by this much, if at all. So I'm not sure you can really use that as justification, but you know, it sounds like from what other reporters are reporting, it sounds like this is most likely them trying to just pad their margins so they can make cheaper vehicles available for the rest of the world where they're trying to increase their market share. But if you are someone who's interested in affordable electric vehicles, a lot of people comment and say, oh, you know, I would be interested in an electric vehicle if there were affordable options. And there's lots of affordable options. All you have to do is, you know, do a little bit of research. But Nissan is really making an impact, especially with Tesla's prices going up. Nissan has the answer. Their prices are dropping quick. So Nissan just announced here the pricing for the 2022 Leaf. It's dropping its base price by $4,245, starting at now just $28,375 before the tax credit. So if you're eligible for the tax credit, effectively you can get a brand new electric car for just over $20,000. Very solid. You can also get a Mini Cooper SE for about that price too after the incentive, but I know the Mini's a two-door, much less practical, but this is a nice four-door hatchback. I've heard great things about the Nissan Leaf from people that have owned them and stuff. I've never reviewed one, but seems like it's a pretty solid car for just over 20 grand if you want something electric. There's also the longer range plus version that even gets a bigger cut on its price tag, so that's dropping by nearly $6,000, now starting at $33,375. And they didn't even, you know, decontent it. Some people are like, oh man, they're probably going to strip out the interior for these cheaper base models. No, they're not. So they're actually adding features here along with those price cuts. So you now get standard DC fast charging. You now get a standard power driver's seat, surround view cameras, LED headlights, the Pro Pilot Highway Drive Assist, which is like one of the best, honestly, on the highway as far as, you know, you still have to keep your hands on the wheel, but it will do most of the steering, and it does it very well. I tested that in the Rogue and several other Nissans. That is now standard in a vehicle, again, just barely over $20,000. You get an auto-dimming rearview mirror along with a few other small things, all as standard. So pretty solid. I mean, that is a very compelling option. You know, I know that, you know, you can get Super Cruise now in the Bolt, which is also very, very tempting, you know, to get Super Cruise in a vehicle that cheap. But, I mean, you know, if you're not worried about that, I mean, this is tough to beat. And like I said, the Leafs, I mean, they've been around for a long time. They've established their reliability. They're great little cars from everything I've heard. So awesome that they're so affordable. And so, yes, if anyone asks you, you know, how come there aren't any electric cars that are affordable, point them to the Nissan Leaf, because these massive price cuts, it's tough to you know, reject the value proposition here in these. It's a really, really good value, it sounds. So good job, Nissan, and cool to see that. Volvos here in America are getting a little more electrified here for the 2022 model year. So, Volvo announced that all their 2022 models, aside from the XC90 and the XC60 Cross Country, will now come standard with the 48-volt mild hybrid system. So the engines are all the same, so there's no changes there. They just now have an integrated starter, generator, and a regenerative brake-by-wire system, so it can now do more of the extended stop-start, you know, rolling at low speeds, things like that with the engine off, still coasting more. And so all that stuff helps to boost fuel economy by up to 15% across the board there. So in the S60, for example, it's a 3 mpg boost. So 3 mpg, I mean, it's not massive, but, you know, for something that isn't an actual, like, full-blown hybrid system, it's just, you know, an extended stop-start. I mean, that's a pretty nice improvement there. So basically the way they're rebranding this, so instead of the old, like, there was T5 and T6 trims for the Volvos, there's now B5 and B6. And so that's just, you know, the new trim levels there. And they didn't announce any kind of updated pricing for these, but they're already starting to show up at dealers. So we should have official pricing figures here relatively soon. Yeah, so I mean, great to see that. I mean, extra 3 mpg. Hopefully, if the price increase isn't huge, that's really nice news. And Yeah, of course, they also do have the plug-in hybrid versions at the top of the range there for a lot of the Volvos you can get as well if you're interested in even better fuel economy. But great to see that even the normal base models now get a little bit of an MPG boost. And then the last news story here this week is about the finally we have some actual news as far as the United States and what we're planning to do as far as electric vehicles and our goals and stuff like that. We've been hearing over the past year or two about the rest of the world and California even how they're all planning in a 2035 for when they plan to ban the sale of new gasoline powered vehicles. And so of course, the U.S. is a little less ambitious with our goals here, so there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not going to get into any of the political stuff or any of the what should or shouldn't be done. But here's the news. That's what I always do, is just lay out the news and what's being planned. So the president this week announced a goal of roughly 50% of new vehicle sales being either electric, hydrogen, or plug-in hybrid by 2030. So half of vehicle sales will be a combination of those three. So the plug-in hybrid caveat is really the one that makes this very much less ambitious than basically every other country out there. Plug-in hybrid, you could even have, like you see with a lot of the other plug-in hybrids these days that are, not super cutting edge. You have awesome stuff like the RAV4 Prime, but then, Mitsubishi's been having the Outlander plug-in hybrid for years now. And some of these, even in the Volvos, they don't have much range, so it really, it helps, but doesn't move the ball forward very much, again, by 2030. And then it's only half of all the vehicles being sold. So anyone that was worried about, coming for the V8s and stuff like that, clearly we don't have much to worry about here in the States, according to this current plan, which, by the way, is just a goal. It's just an aspirational goal. There's no, definite line in the sand. It's just it's something that they're aiming for, and all the car companies are voluntarily going along with this as well, which we know is a pretty thin promise because, the automakers just go with whatever the current administration is doing. And if they get a chance to roll back fuel economy standards, most of them do take it. Some of them didn't, in the past administration, but most of them are like, cool, we don't have to worry about fuel economy for 4 years. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. But so along with this, the administration does plan to announce new fuel economy standards, I think relatively soon. But as of me filming this, that wasn't posted, so I'm not sure what those new standards will be. Most likely they'll be stricter than the current standards, which were rolled back with the previous administration once again. So we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, GM, Ford, Stellantis all agreed to this goal. But even with that agreement, they had caveats. They're like, we'll agree to this, but only if the government provides federal funding for manufacturing, research, purchase incentives, and an expansion of the EV charging network, which are all things planned in the new infrastructure bill. We just don't know. They are also very worried about the consumer demand side, and so basically incentives. Right now there's a $7,500 tax credit federally. I think they want to try and boost that, and there's been talks of that being boosted, or if not being boosted, then at least being brought back for companies like Tesla or GM, companies that have already sold over that 200,000 car threshold, so that you incentivize more of those companies so they're not quite as much of a disadvantage as the others. So we'll see about all that. Also, BMW, Honda, Volkswagen, and Volvo all announced along with the White House that they plan to join in on this goal, and Toyota has agreed to do their part as well. So basically, everyone in America, all the car companies in America at least, are all kind of agreeing, this is what we're going to do. Half of our sales will at least be plug-in hybrids by 2030. I kind of assumed that things would be mostly plug-in hybrid by 2030 anyway. And again, you can make that as liberal as you want. You could have a Lamborghini having a V12 that does 1,000 horsepower on its own and then add in 5 miles of electric range with a tiny little battery the size of a smartphone. And that's a plug-in hybrid, So, I think there's a lot of room for, again, you don't have to worry about, gasoline vehicles going away here in the States. Now, California will make it tough if they do actually stick to their 2035 phase out. Then, there will be a lot of, automakers that won't be able to afford to justify keeping, the gas stuff around just because of California and all the states that comply with California, which I believe there's 13 or 14 states that go along with what they say. So, we'll see. And that's also 5 years beyond this goal. So we'll have to see. And also keep in mind that, the administration will change at least by, 2028 or 2029 there. So, it's going to be a little bit of a, we'll see what happens kind of thing. Like all these goals and plans with all the countries all around the world, they have plans, they have goals. We'll see what happens. It could happen sooner, could happen most likely later. We'll see how it all plays out. But at least here in the States, if you're someone who loves gas-powered stuff, I don't think you have much to worry about right now. As far as that goes, very unambitious plans here. But anyway, interesting to hear all of that. But yeah, that's it for all the news this week, guys. Let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please continue to stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.